So this pres will go for maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, and then there's that real opportunity at the end to ask any questions. If Jessie, myself, or any of the AFL Barwon team can't answer those questions while we're here, we'll make every effort to follow up with any queries or any burning questions that you may have following this presentation. So, what are you guys saying at the moment? My screen's playing up a little bit. Jessie, can I just ask which?
Yeah, seeing just the session plan slide.
The session plan slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what we want to get at it tonight is really some increased awareness of what grants are available, particularly for community-based sporting clubs. We want to support clubs in their confidence in writing a grant. And we also want to flag some ideas around project managing grants as well. So you might think of developing a grants team within your club. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the opportunities there are to get support from key stakeholders as well. Including Leisure Networks and some of your key stakeholders, local government, AFL Barwon, AFL Vic, those types of stakeholders. So what is a grant? Very simply, a grant is a sum of money that's given to one organisation from one organisation to another for the specific purpose or a particular outcome. So some of those specific purposes may be around increasing your participation. They may be around an infrastructure build or a refit, as was discussed session, or it could be simply for equipment purchase and uniforms and things like that. So there are a variety of different grants available to clubs. The main idea or the premise behind a grant application is that you need a clear idea of what you want or what you want to achieve. So you don't look at the funding and then try and retrofit and apply that way. You actually need to have a demonstrated need within your club and then try and work out what the most suitable form of application or process might be. There are a number of different funders out and about. You just need to know where to look for them. So grants are provided by a wide variety of organisations, but the biggest providers are the different levels of government. So for those that were in that previous session, there was a lot of discussion around local and state government and also federal government. So local government, really encourage you to check your local government websites. They should have a page around grants. A lot of these grants are for small community grants that might be around participation projects. They might be around equipment purchase, might be around supporting a particular cohort to find out a little bit more about your club. The state government grants, there's a number of different categories within state government opportunities. They include, again, uniforms and equipment. It could be around developing a strategic plan, could be around building capacity of your club members, training, skill development, that sort of thing. Or, as talked about in that previous session, might be the bigger opportunities around infrastructure and rebuilds or refits of your clubs. And then federal government, you know, some of those opportunities again are around those bigger regional or bigger builds. So something like GMHBA Stadium, but federal government also do provide certain grants around participation opportunities as well. And certainly Leisure Networks was successful over the last 12 months in developing a physical literacy program for young people called Mini Movers, and that was funded through federal funding. There are other types of grants, such as philanthropic trusts and foundations. So an example of that is the Ian Potter Charitable Trust. You do need to have DGR status or deductible gift recipient status to be able to apply for certain philanthropic trusts and foundations. If you don't have DGR status, you would need an auspice. So an auspice arrangement is a reasonably simple procedure, and it's really around teaming up or partnering with a key organisation who can manage funds and manage a project on your behalf. There are commercial organisations, so there's business opportunities, connections to Australia Post, grants, Telstra, Holden, RACV, Coles, Woolworths, those types of business opportunities or commercial opportunities. Again, it's a matter of jumping onto websites and having a look at the opportunities available and where some of the need within your club may be. There's also the Australian Sports Foundation, a project called Sports for Everyone. So you would register your project and then you can receive donations to fund your particular projects and receive a tax deduction when you have those contributions. There is a bit of reality that it's rare for clubs to be successful with 100% of your grant applications. It's not uncommon for many clubs' success rates to be as low as 1 in 4, and that's a great result. 1 in 4 is a great result, but it is a very competitive process. There is limited amount of funds out there from funding organisations, so you need to make sure that your applications are as good as they can possibly be, and you check all the boxes before you submit. Just wanted to go into a little bit about the pre-write-up and some of the things that you need to look out for when you're preparing your grant. Number one is to read the eligibility and the criteria really carefully. From the feedback that we get from state government, particularly in relation to the latest round of COVID assistance grants, a number of clubs just didn't tick a couple of boxes. That makes them ineligible. So you put all that work in. If boxes aren't ticked or a certain section isn't completed properly, it becomes ineligible. So sometimes funders will give a bit of opportunity for a resubmission, but in the most part, such a competitive process, if it's not completed properly the first time round, you'll get an unsuccessful. It's a really good idea to look at your funder's website, to look at their vision and their mission, their core values, and make sure that they align to the vision and the mission and the values and behaviours that you would expect within your sporting club. If there's a mismatch between that alignment, I would say don't go for the grant. So thinking about some of the alcohol sponsorship, you know, previous tobacco sponsorship, if it's racing, betting, that sort of thing, do they align with who you want the community to see your club and the profile that you want for your community club? If they don't, perhaps look for another opportunity. It's a really good idea to understand key trends within the community. We'd all be aware that there's a real focus on women and girls participation at the moment. So real opportunity, there's a lot of money out there, again, knowing where to look for it, to increase female, women and girls participation within clubs. Think about the key trends within your community. Population growth, is there a key demographic? Are there newly arrived communities coming to your community? What are the key trends? What are some of the external influences that you need to capture and capitalise on? If the above points if you fit with the alignment, if you fit with the eligibility, it's always a great idea to contact the grant agency and have a chat. Contact your local government, contact leisure networks, contact Sport and Rec Victoria. We can help with that contact. Just have a chat about your project, ask for feedback, ask for what they're looking for. Go over the guidelines again then and highlight any keywords and themes, timelines, work backwards from the due date, and if there are any contributions required by your club, whether it's financial, whether it's other contributions such as equipment, time, that sort of thing. Read the FAQs. Most of the big grants will have an FAQ section that might answer some of the questions that you had. And seek suitable partnerships and supporters to start your conversation. So what are the opportunities for you to partner with other like organisations or other organisations that may benefit from your project? They can then contribute potential manpower, potential dollars and potential ideas to start your conversation. In terms of your actual write-up, be aware of your word limits. Once again, if you go over word limits, you might get a cross straight away, or you might lose some of that valuable information that the grant, the funding organisation is asking for. Have a clear identification of your problem at your club. What's the issue? What's the problem that you're trying to solve, and how will success with your grant solve that particular problem? Explain your project and your program pretty clearly and with clarity, and if you need to use tables or flowcharts for that, then that's a great idea. Have a solid governance or management framework in place to manage the project. So who will the lead agency be? If it's your club, identify who the lead of the project will be within your club. Advise whether you've got an advisory group or a steering committee that might be made up of your key stakeholders, that sort of thing. As was said in the previous session, letters of agreement, letters of support, letters of agreement, MOUs, which is a memorandum of understanding when you've got a couple of different partners that may need to work together to achieve the common goal. Anything that you can include as attachments to support your application. Have a clear idea of your timelines. So again, working back from when the due date of your grant is, think of what are the key milestones that you need to achieve in order to successfully apply for your grant. And if you're successful, what are your timelines looking like in terms of project implementation as well? Have a risk management plan. Think of the things that can go wrong. Think of the things that can go right and how they can go right in a more succinct and streamlined way as well. So risk management, thinking of all the things that might impact your project. If it's a come and try day, you're thinking about the risk management of COVID-19 is probably one that comes to mind straight away. So if we happen to go into, God help us, a lockdown again, what's your contingency plan? What happens if the weather's really poor on that day? What happens if you don't get anyone turning up? What happens if your coach is sick? So think of all the things that can potentially impact the smooth running of your session. You need to be realistic about your budget, again with some fat either side of your budget. So realistic around the time that your project will take, around the cost involved in volunteers volunteering their time as well, and thinking about all the things that will go into your project and some of the identifiers around, equipment. It might be consumables such as catering and things like that. Might be printing and marketing and time spent doing your socials and all that sort of thing. If it's a really big grant, you may need a business case. So that might be something that if you're going for a state government grant with the support of local government, you might feed information into a business case that goes to your local government. So they're generally around the infrastructure builds and things like that. Show an element of readiness, that your club has got the finances available to support a project. If it's a co-funded project, that you've got a project plan that you can pick up and roll with should your funding be successful, and be realistic around the timelines in that. And then if funders are asking for evidence of sustainability beyond the life of the grant, most will ask for that when it's particularly around a participation grant and how you intend on potentially converting new participants into members, and what the opportunities are for existing participation. To think about that and how you can embed potential new participants into your club is a really good thing to be able to demonstrate. So a little bit about what funders want to see. When you work your way through a grant application, there is some pretty clear, there is usually some pretty clear weighting on where funders see the most important aspects of your application. So when I say weighting, there might be a couple of questions that have a score of 20% of total, 30% of total, and then the bulk of the application, it might be 50% of your total. So whatever score the funder gives you, that's potentially where the most weighting and the success, the effort needs to be concentrated. So again, thinking about the organisation's objectives. So if you're looking at applying for a Vic Health grant, for instance, Vic Health have an objective around increasing participation for women and girls and 12 to 17-year-olds. They have some health imperatives around reducing smoking, mental health, healthy eating. So ensuring that you're meeting the objectives of the funding body is really crucial to your application. You need to know what's trending. We talked about that before. So women and girls participation is trending. Inclusion is a buzzword and will always be part of an application, particularly for community sport and active recreation. What's the main objective of the particular grant round? Is it around strategic planning? Is it around building the capacity and capability of our volunteers within sporting clubs? And does your target reach resonate with the intention of the grant? So what you're trying to do, does that actually connect with the intention of the funding that the funders are offering? Do the benefits of your project line up to the benefits sought? So again, the tip, look at the grant objectives. It's a great idea to look at the funder's strategic plan or have a look at their imperatives for the next 5 to 10 years, see where their focus is, have a look at their website, and if in doubt, call them to find out what their strategic alignment looks like. So funders want to see the clearly defined problem with some solutions. So I know in the previous round, Brodie gave some really clear and snappy sort of sentences around some examples of what clubs have provided to local government when they've been looking at infrastructure upgrades. So I think one of the examples he gave was very clear around the development of some benches and some lighting that would lead to an increase in participation because of. So some very clear words articulating what your issue is, the impact that solving your issue would have, so some of the solutions, the benefits, and how you're going to measure what impact your project will have as well. Is it number of new members? Is it a reduction, an increase in efficiency in your club? Is it an increase in skill and capacity? Is it an increase in leadership? So what are some of the ways that you can measure your success? I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the evidence that you might need to supply when you're writing up your grant application. So some grants will ask for evidence around local data. So thinking about growth within your catchment, it might be in your suburb, or it might be in your local government area, it might be in your current membership. So you could have a look at your membership trends over the last few years and see where the ebbs and flows have been over what particular age group, women and girls, boys and men, so where some of those opportunities might be. Local government can certainly give you information on demographics. AFL Barwon, I'm sure, would have information on participation trends within our region as well. The ABS have some data. There's a number of different sources of data. The G21 website is also a really great source of information that breaks our data down by our region, by our local government areas, by age, by cultural background. So another really good source of information. Anything that you can provide that can support your application will be of benefit. So you might be thinking, you know, potential growth corridors, you know, the Armstrong Creek area, growing area, Bannockburn, growing area. Where are the population explosions happening, and where's the potential for us as a club to connect into some of those growth populations? Letters of support, we talked about that before, but thinking about who your key stakeholders are and what they can bring in terms of a letter of support. Leisure Networks, we're here and can offer that service where we've got a connection to a club. So if we've written your strategic plan or worked with you to help write your strategic plan, we might provide you with a letter of support if you're applying for a facility upgrade, to say that, you know, we've been working with you and one of your priorities within your plan was to go for facilities funding in the next 3 to 5 years. Partnerships is a really important one to touch on, particularly for some of those bigger grants. So starting conversations early with potential interest groups to get buy-in, to look at where those opportunities for some of the shared contribution to your project might be. Shared user groups are a must for facility grants. So if you're looking and starting your conversation early with your local government around a facility upgrade, it's really important that if you're a football, netball club that shares with a cricket club or another particular code, you do need to have your whole tenancy group involved in the conversation. Again, we talked about letters of support, MOUs and contracts. The partnerships, they need to have clearly defined roles. I know from our work at Leisure Networks, we've seen a number of projects that have gone sour because there hasn't been real clarity in terms of partnership contribution. So it needs to be identified, it needs to be put in writing, and that needs to be signed off on, particularly for those bigger grants. For some of the smaller grants, there's still an opportunity for that partnership development, particularly when you might be looking at projects that you know, might be a little bit out of the comfort zone of a club. So things like writing your strategic plan, things like writing a marketing plan. You might need a key partner, whether it's a business partner, it might be someone from a particular, you know, another group such as AFL Bar and such as Leisure Networks that might need to come in and provide some support in terms of developing and implementing your project. And then once you've got your partners engaged, it's really about that open communication and keeping your partnership involved as well. So following up, having some key advisory meetings, steering group meetings, communication plan around what's happening with your project or what's happening with your grant application if you haven't been funded as yet. Partners can be really great in terms of co-contribution as well. So whether that's an actual monetary contribution or an in-kind contribution, which is really, in-kind is really donating either your labour or goods and services to a particular project. So usually within a budget section on a grant, there would be an in-kind contribution section, and you can actually put monetary value towards labour contributed to a project. So if you're doing a project that has some hands-on sort of roles within the project, and I'm a coach and I'm saying I don't want to be paid for this, this is something that I'll do, there's still a value in me as a coach contributing to your project that can be identified within your budget. Most grants will want to see what impact their contribution to you will have, particularly on the community, and particularly on the community being your club. So what is the community demand? Who's missing out? Who's not being supported within your club? Where are the opportunities to provide that extra support? How many people will your project reach? Now this figure needs to be estimated. It's often very difficult to determine the exact number, but to be realistic around, you know, how many people you think you can have an impact on, actual participants, and also some of the behind the scenes participants as well. So again, if you're applying for a come and try day or something, or a participation program or something like that, your on-field or your actual participants can be counted, but also all the people that your project will impact in an off-field capacity as well. So all your volunteers, all your officials, you know, all the people that this project will have a particular touch point with. And thinking about your target group, so who will benefit. It's important that you identify who your target group is, and that relates back up to your community need and your community profiling to see, you know, where some of those opportunities may lie. If you're thinking about a capacity building project to support volunteers within your club, your benefits will be your wonderful volunteers who are the backbone of your club. So again, it depends on the type of project that you're going for in terms of your target group and your reach. You need to demonstrate that you are a pretty low risk opportunity for the funding bodies to support. So really showing that you have thought out the way that your project will be managed if successful, that you're capable. So you might actually talk about some previous projects or previous funds that you've managed within your club, or that you've partnered with another organisation to deliver a particular project. Again, seeing lines of responsibility for all aspects of project management. So you'll have potentially have a project lead, and then you might have a steering group or an advisory committee that is supporting that, the implementation of that project. You might have your stakeholders that are offering some support as well, your partnerships. So really, who's responsible for what and how are they going to get that done? Your detailed project plan, again, risk assessment we talked about earlier, your capability or evidence of implementing similar projects, and how you might sustain some or all of the project as well once the funding has ceased and the project has finished. Funders will want to see value for money. So again, touching on that in-kind contribution. So volunteer hours, I think the rate is around $25 per hour. It may have gone up slightly, but that has been the sort of the consistent rate of that in-kind contribution from volunteers. Again, it depends on the skills and expertise and what the contribution looks like, but where it's I guess sort of a reasonably standard volunteer support implementation, it's around that $25 to $30 mark. But Jessie, that might be something we can just follow up and provide some clarity on that. Be resourceful, so identify what the real costs for your project are. Funders will see straight through any furfies or any made-up numbers, so make sure that you do get that that dollar figure reasonably close. Obviously, you do need a little bit of leeway where possible, but to identify what the real costs are for a project. And outline the project budget. So you might have input from your treasurer, you might have input from someone that's written a grant before, you might have your grants team within a club, and they might think of some things that you haven't thought of before. Certainly Leisure Networks is always here as a resource to run a grant application past as well. We've had a look at quite a few grants over the years and very happy to provide any feedback where possible. And obviously clear benefits and value. So funders will want to see that there are going to be benefits to your club, to your community, or to your potential community. So highlighting all the benefits. Tell a story, so make the funder feel how good the benefits will be. Have the human interest element at the front of your application, and outline the value to the club or to the community. If it's a strategic plan, the value to the club will be that this document and implementation will guide our club to success over the next 3 to 5 years. Just a couple of resources that I wanted to highlight. Certainly Vic Health, who are a major funder of Leisure Networks, they have had a number of grants over the past few years and have really supported community sport to help develop participation programs and opportunities for people to get active within community. They have reworked their applications and their funds, sorry, their grants just over the last couple of months in response to COVID. So the Reimagining Health grants are worth a look. I urge you to jump on and have a look at those. And I know that there's been a number of clubs in our region that were recently successful within those grants, which is a really great thing. Sport and Rec Victoria, they've actually got the Sporting Club Grants program open now, so urge you to jump on and have a look at sport.vic.gov.au/grants. The Sporting Club Grants program, we'll talk about them in a minute, but a real opportunity for clubs to apply for funding under 4 different categories for 4 different reasons to really help with some of the day-to-day, but the efficiencies and the running and the capacity and the capability of your club. Vic Sport is a bit of a one-stop shop for clubs as well. So have a look at that website. They generally bring together a number of different grants in one page, so it's a really easy way to look at what grants are available on a sort of a one page within a website. Vic Sport have also been really wonderful at keeping sport up to date with the current COVID restrictions, any webinars, any opportunities for learning for clubs, for sharing of information, that sort of thing. So Vic Sport are a really great resource to keep tabbed within your Outlook, within your websites. Grants Victoria is another one to keep an eye on as well. I think above all, if you follow Leisure Networks on Facebook and follow AFL Barwon on Facebook, we would generally promote and share any opportunities for clubs to apply for funding on a regular basis. So I think if there's anything I can urge you to do after the session tonight is to like both Leisure Networks and AFL Barwon on Facebook, and you'll get these updates regardless. Just wanted to, just noticing it's getting very dark in my room, so I might just open that. Just wanted to touch on the state government 2020-2021 Sporting Club Grants program, which is slightly delayed. Obviously, COVID did have an impact on the release of these as well, but they are now open. So there's 4 different categories within this grant round, and I can attest that they are particularly basic grants to apply for. So category 1 is uniforms and equipment, so up to $1,000 to apply for uniforms and equipment that may support a new cohort, new teams, bringing new people into your club. The second category is skill development. So that is anything around training and that sort of thing. So it might be first aid. There's if you go to the website, there's examples of what will be funded under each category. The third category is organisation operational capacity. And just on that one, Leisure Networks has a couple of key products that we can support an application under category 3, so under that operational capacity, which is just up on screen now. So making your mark, it's a marketing action plan. Creating a team, which is a governance action plan, and strategic planning, so a strategic plan for your club. So please reach out. Jessie, I might just get you to put the expression of interest form link into the chat function, if that's okay.
Yeah, just there now, I think.
Oh, legend, thank you. And the fourth category is a COVID-19 recovery category. So that's funding to support clubs to with associated return to play costs and initiatives. So an example of this might be a new software system that can track people that are coming to your club for an extended period of time. Might be booking systems that people need to book into particular programs where you can only have a limited number of people. Might be around hygiene and cleaning and the costs involved in that. Could be around extra equipment, so people don't need to be sharing equipment at training. So to have an extra set that can sort of stick with, you know, a particular group of people, can be washed after each session and brought back. And it could be around signage and posters around the club as well. So really encourage you to have a look at those grants. They are open until the 18th of March. And in particular, we're happy to have a look and support you through any of the applications, but in particular, the ones that are on screen around making your mark, creating a team, and strategic planning. If you have a look at if you're interested, complete the expression of interest form and one of our team will get back to you pretty quickly, noting that 18th of March isn't that far away, but really, really happy to support you. Yep.
Sorry, Brooke, I was just going to say quickly, the difference with this round as well that clubs should be aware of is typically in the past, they wait until the closure date to then assess applications and review them and advise who's successful. This time around, and part of it is because of COVID, is that they're basically, when they receive applications, once you submit an application, within 4 to 6 weeks, you'll have an answer on whether you're successful. So the funding, there is a potential that the funding will be exhausted before the actual closing date, which they'll advise as well. So a little bit different this time around. So if you are thinking about getting an application in, better to get in sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Jessie. Just wanted to share a resource that Leisure Networks has developed and continually updating as well, www.clubhelp.org.au. Within this website, there's a number of templates and guides and links that can support the operations of community-based sporting clubs. Jessie is updating that daily and sharing links on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, jump on and make sure that you like or follow Club Help for all those updates. There's a grant section on Club Help that's got a really great template that I guess sort of helps you develop your grant application. So it asks you to think about a number of different things when you're putting your application together. It's almost like a project plan in itself. So a really useful little guide that can support the development of a grant application. That's it in terms of the formal presentation, which we're really happy to share that presentation with you all. But I guess, Jessie, I haven't seen the chat function, so I'm really happy to open that up and for you to moderate that, or for anyone to take their microphone off mute if you've got any questions or any comments or any learnings or sharings that you'd like to talk about with the group.
There's no questions as such as yet in the chat function, Brooke, but yeah, if anyone wants to post something in now, or if they want to, as Brooke said, turn themselves off mute, we're happy to discuss now. We've got a bit of time to do so.
Silence is golden. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you think of something, or you've got a query, or there's something that's bubbling away that you might like to ask via email or phone. Our details are on the screen. So yeah, really happy to work with you guys. Again, the offer's there if you are looking to apply for funding, particularly those sporting club grants, but any funding, we're super happy to look over an application to help you think a little differently around what your application may look like. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here, and it's really part of our role to support you guys to make application.
Brooke, we've just got a question that's come through. Should clubs have an idea and find a grant, or see the grant and come up with an idea?
Yeah, I know it's hard, because sometimes when you get these amazing opportunities pop up in front of you, you're like, right, what can we do? What can we do to get this one? My experience and our experience is that your issue or your problem should be there, and then you look for the particular funder or funding opportunity to match that. Some of the cases like these sporting club grants, they can be quite reactive. So, you know, the COVID-19 category is a real example of that, where no one envisaged that this was going to happen. It has happened. So they've thrown a grant round together that we can then respond to. Again, it's still meeting that identified need that you might have within your club. You know, you might have a real need for signage, or a QR system, or some sort of software that can track your guests and members of friends of members and things like that. So for the main part, it's you've got your issue and you look for the appropriate funding round to suit.
Another one, Brooke, we've got that's come through. Yeah, we'll see how we go with this one. Can the part 4 of current round be for a series of things such as cleaning and uniforms, reduce shared equipment, or better to focus on one issue?
Well, I'd have to follow up with that one. My sense is that it could be for a couple of different things. I'm speaking with SRV tomorrow, so I will endeavour to follow up on that one. And Jesse, if you can just record who has asked that question, but we'll share it and the presentation with the rest of the group as well. That's a great question.
Yeah, and I think important that is the category 4 is a new category that's just been included in this round as well. So I think there's still a bit of clarification on what that means and what's going to be successful with that particular category. Yeah,
and I think certainly SRV have been, you know, really on the front foot in terms of the COVID recovery work. Certainly our contract manager has been very open to hearing what the issues of community sport are, and taking that back to the Minister around funding. So my sense is that you would be able to apply for a collection of things under that category, but I will double check and confirm.
Just another question here, and this one's more from me, Brooke. We've seen within the last couple of years that there's been clubs that have been successful for different parts, for grants as part of different parts of a project. So they might have gone for a grant initially for a strategic plan. They've seen as part of a strategic planning process that they want to build infrastructure. So that's then helped them with the infrastructure build. Have you got any potential examples or case studies you might be able to talk through that might be obviously helpful in terms of the grant writing process?
Yeah, probably one that comes to mind immediately is the Cryo Little Athletics Centre. A number of years ago, we helped them develop their strategic plan, and I think it was the following year that they were successful in their track upgrade. And the upgrade was a particular strategy within that plan. More recently, my colleague Tim Downs and I worked with Geelong Rangers Soccer Club out at Myers Reserve. We helped them develop a strategic plan. Part of that plan was around facility development, with a priority being lighting. They have just recently applied for a City of Greater Geelong infrastructure grant and were successful in obtaining that funding. We also just recently supported them with a participation plan as well. So really making a connection between the lighting and the impact that that would have on their current and future participation. So if they didn't have lights, this is what would happen. If they did have lights, this is the trajectory that they could see their participation would take. So there are probably a couple of examples, Jesse, on some of the work that we've been doing and how it's supported infrastructure development.
Yeah, that's great. There's a question from Andy in the audience. The Geelong umpires are looking to recruit more women and girls. So the question is, do we advertise with brochures first or apply for grants to know that they can assist with moving forward?
I would say there's a lot of opportunities for funding to develop programs. So, I mean, it depends on the success of what you think advertising is going to do. You know, it can work in some particular recruitment drives, and sometimes it sort of falls flat on its face. So I would say you'd be the judge of whether you think, you know, that way would work. I would say it probably needs a bit more of a structured project plan behind it. So, you know, number one, making sure that your environment's inclusive of women and girls, that you've got a club, you've got a community facility that is going to be accommodating, inclusive, friendly, welcoming, open, that sort of stuff. And then, looking at where there's potential funding opportunities. So Vic Health would be one. Certainly SRV would potentially be another one. So some of those participation grant opportunities, and really develop up a program. I guess I'm thinking of the Unity Cup and the way that sort of develops a hub, which is a bit of a come and try 6-week session for multicultural young people to participate in AFL. That then rolls over to a gala day, which then has a connection back to local clubs. So I would suggest maybe something that has a bit of a project plan around it might be the way to go. I could be wrong though.
Any other questions?
And happy to help with the development of that.
I think we've got another question here. Would it be beneficial to mention that we have a current strategic plan that demonstrates a particular need when writing up an application?
100%, yes. And potentially attaching that to your application, or pulling out the section that is relevance to the funder or to the project and putting it in your application, 100%.
I think that's something that we've seen generally, and it's the reason why there are quite a few questions with some of the grant applications you fill out. Is the funder wants to know that this is part of, as Brooke said, a general plan. It's actually thought through. It's a problem with a solution. Rather, they'll feel pretty quickly if they can see it's going to be effectively a money grab. So again, if you've got it as part of a strategic plan that it is a clearly identified problem with a solution, they're much more likely to fund, rather than thinking it is just purely you've seen a grant and you want the money for different reasons.
Yeah, certainly if you've got then some stats, whether it's statistics from your own club around your own club's participation trends, or whether you've got, complementary demographics from your association, your local government, that can back up, where you see some opportunities. Certainly anything you can contribute that tells the story is definitely something that needs to go into your application.
Anything else to finish us off from the audience? Just give another few seconds just to write any more questions.
While we wait for that, Jesse, I might just tick off some housekeeping stuff, and then there might be the opportunity for some more questions in that time. Thanks, Brooke, by the way, before we let you go. I'm sure everyone got a heap out of that. Fantastic session, and please don't hesitate, anyone viewing tonight, to get in touch with Leisure Networks and Brooke herself. They're always more than happy to help with anything particularly around grant writing. So thank you again, Brooke. It's still not too late to register either for tomorrow night's 2 sessions we've got coming up as well. We've got Tarek and Rana presenting on club respect and how to be a more inclusive club, respectively. So 2 more sessions to wrap up our educational week. It's been a fantastic week so far. So we'll wrap it up with those 2 tomorrow night. and obviously they're both very experienced in that diversity and inclusion field. Rana herself is Richmond Footy Club's inclusion and diversity coordinator, so she's got some great experience to draw on. So I encourage everyone to jump on from 6:30 tomorrow night to be part of those 2 sessions. And you can head to our website too. The registration link is there. It's also on Facebook, all over our social platforms. So if you haven't registered yet, it's never too late. Unless there's any more questions from anyone in the audience, that might do us, unless you got anything, Brooke, to finish on.
Just to say thanks again for everyone for jumping in tonight. You know, we're at Leisure Networks, we're pretty used to doing these ones in person, so it's always, you know, it's a good opportunity for us to get our messages out, and appreciate that we're not dragging you guys out to another meeting when you're probably out most nights of the week, supporting and volunteering or playing and participating at your club. So yeah, just want to acknowledge that these things, you know, they don't replace that human contact, but, you know, I'm really pleased that we were able to contribute to tonight, and wish everyone the best for a wonderful 2021 season. Fingers crossed.
Awesome, Brooke, thank you. And just finally, everyone, every session this week is being recorded, and we'll also share those resources on our website. So at the conclusion of this week, you'll be able to watch back any session you wish. And same with viewing the PowerPoints like the one you saw tonight. I know there was a few hyperlinks in there. If you want to click directly on them, we'll be able to share them on our website, and you can go to directly that way if you haven't copied it from the chat box that Jesse and Michael put in tonight. That might do us. Thanks, everyone. Thank you again for joining in, and hopefully see all of you tomorrow night to finish up our educational week of the game plan.
Thanks, everyone.